Hello, I'm Raymond, and welcome to another indie game devlog, documenting the development of my anime-styled parkour game, Project Feline. Over the past month, I've been creating mood boards and environment concepts, exploring the world of Project Feline. And in this episode, we'll be exploring the new world design and my ideation process using reference, concept sketches, and color. I'll also be discussing some major decisions being made behind the scenes. So without further ado, let's get into it. Over the past year, I've been working on the prototype for Project Feline, and I've been extremely fortunate to have over tens of thousands of people download it and provide me with lots of valuable feedback. The game may be rough in its current state, but I've managed to develop a set of core mechanics that function adequately, and many of the players seem to enjoy the game so far. However, even with the mechanics in place, I still get lots of questions about what Project Feline even is. Will the game have an open world, a story, an endless mode? Will this game be like Jet Set Radio, Mirror's Edge, or like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater? Ultimately, I don't know what the game will end up being like, but these comments have helped me realize that there are other elements besides the mechanics, such as art style, music, and level design, that all work to establish a game's identity. My current development goal is to solidify Project Feline's identity, and transform it into a full game experience, and not just another parkour sandbox. As the developer, one of my biggest fears is that
the game is not fun. Why bother?
And to this end, I've been focused on the gameplay for most of the project's development. While I understand that there are many games like mine out there with wall riding, grinding, and other parkour mechanics, they all do things differently to set each other apart. The mechanics I've developed are by no means perfect. However, I don't believe continuing this laser focus on the mechanics would be a healthy investment of time for both my own sake and the project's. For me personally, it's been difficult to maintain such a tight focus on this extremely specific part of the project for this long. This behavior is what I like to call pigeonholing, and it's often driven me to creative burnout. As for the game itself, this laser focus on the mechanics has led me to neglect other areas that may need attention, such as pacing, art style, and music. Consequently, making progress while focusing exclusively on mechanics has been difficult without knowing the full scope or vision for the rest of the game. Hence, I am moving the development of Project Feline into an entirely new direction. My goal is to develop the Project Feline prototype into something more comprehensive, like a small vertical slice of what the final game may look like, with an emphasis on demonstrating progress across all components of the game, such as gameplay, art style, and music, as opposed to my current prototype, which emphasizes on mechanics exclusively. I'd also like to call back to one of my older videos where I bring up one of my favorite talks given by Rami Ismail at the 2015 Control Conference, where he asked the audience,
do you have any idea what you're making? Like, not just like, do you know what you're making, but do you really know what you're making?
I've had this voice in the back of my head asking me this question ever since I started Project Feline, and I believe creating a comprehensive vertical slice will go a long way in helping me to answer that question. For this vertical slice, or V-slice for short, I'm working to develop a polished demo map that represents the game's pace and art style. This map will take longer for players to complete than my previous test levels, and will be furnished with models, lighting, effects, and a soundtrack to demonstrate what a finished level from Project Feline may look like in the final game. But where does one even start when making a level like this? When commencing a new environment, I believe the tone and aesthetic is crucially important. Establishing these helps me set constraints on what sorts of objects, colors, lights, and sounds I want to include in my environment. The quickest way for me to establish these elements is to create a mood board. A mood board is a collage of references, be it images, sounds, or other stimuli that serve as a starting point to define a creative vision. Back in September of 2018, I had already made a game world mood board to set the tone for the game's setting. I first decided to revisit this board and update it with new images and ideas, and then I created a new mood board specifically for the V-Slice map. To create each mood board, I hopped on Pinterest and gathered as many references as I could. At first, I just pinned anything that caught my interest. I then selected 9 images that I liked the most, put them into a collage in Photoshop, and saved it as a single image to use as a reference later. While browsing Pinterest, I also set up a playlist on iTunes, consisting of different songs I thought might fit in with this game's setting. After putting everything together, this was my updated mood board for the game world. For this first image, I was thinking about where the game's protagonist, Gabriella, would live in the game world. Where was she from? What was her living situation? What does her everyday life look like? And by asking myself these questions, I had this random idea that maybe she would live in one of those urban shipping container apartments, like the Nakagin Capsule Tower in Japan. The idea ultimately inspired the decision to have this as the V-Slice map, but we'll get into that more in a bit. The second image pictures a sci-fi metro area with train tracks and buildings intersecting with each other. I'm not sure why I'm drawn to these sorts of environments, but I know that they inspire me, and it just feels like the right kind of setting for Project Feline to take place in. I really liked the lighting in this image, and I feel like walking in the sunlight would feel warm and inviting. The third image displays these high-rise buildings atop busy city streets, with small amounts of traffic populating the air in between. I liked the colours and atmosphere in this image, and it gave me this otherworldly feeling that I'd like to capture. The fourth image was something I found that had cool architecture and colours. I feel like this picture could help me come up with segments for parkour in my levels, and the shades of pink and blue reminded me of Gabby's colour scheme. The fifth image was one I had since the very beginning, illustrating a boy sitting atop a vivid orange crane with some seagulls flying around him. I really love the atmosphere and colour in this piece. The sixth image illustrates a small female character inside a large open warehouse, with what appears to be a dock and a city in the background. I really love the otherworldly feeling and optimistic colours in this piece. It feels very futuristic, and the way in which the environment has been brushed and shaded looks very stylish to me, and I'd like to try and emulate it. The seventh image pictures a large city surrounded by a circular wall or a dome. I like the colours in this image, as well as the idea of this isolated and well-guarded city. The eighth image depicts two escalators in a transport hub. I wanted to include this image as I had the idea while developing the grind mechanic to have Gabby slide down escalator railings. The ninth image I found particularly inspiring, especially with the colour palette and the use of lighting, especially with the sky. After gathering reference material, I then used it to sketch my own concepts and to draft designs for the map's layout. My goal was to get an idea as to what sorts of scenarios I could build for the map. I drew a quick series of thumbnail sketches to brainstorm these ideas. Thumbnails are rough, grayscale sketches that act as a precursor for more refined concepts. These were the thumbnail sketches I produced for the V-Slice map, depicting various ideas for different scenarios. Normally, a concept artist would take one of these and transform it into a more refined concept, complete with lighting and colour. However, to save on time, I opted instead to just quickly colour over one of the pieces and move on. And this leads me to the next major element to consider. It's important to choose a colour palette to use throughout the map, as they play a large role on the map's final mood and feeling. Choosing a set of 5 or so colours in advance won't only make your scene look more cohesive, but it also sets creative constraints. I personally find it enjoyable to try and create something using a limited set of colours. To get my colour palette together, I used a free service called Adobe Color, which I'll link in the video description. This colour tool is useful for selecting colour palettes based on various colour theory techniques. You can also utilise the Explore tab to find other popular colour palettes from the community. But my personal favourite method is importing my own image, like one from my mood board, and isolating the colours from the image into a distinct palette. I tested out a few of these palettes by colouring over my thumbnail sketches. I was then prepared to start working on blocking out the map. As of the recording of this episode, I've made a start on the level blockout using the Unreal Engine. However, it's not quite ready to show yet. I'll be covering my blockout process in the next episode, so be sure to subscribe and enable notifications to continue following my development journey. In the meantime, I've started a Twitch channel. Last week I did a stream showing my blockout phase so far. If you'd like to watch me develop this game live, I'd really appreciate your company. It's been very fun to interact with all of you. Be sure to follow me on Twitch to get notified whenever I go live. Thank you so much for watching. These devlogs are funded by all of my supporters on Patreon, and I'd like to give a special thank you to my top tier supporters. If you'd like to support the production of these videos, you can make your pledge via my Patreon, linked in the description, to get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes posts and exclusive chats on my Discord server. And I'd like to thank the artist behind this episode's wonderful Project Feline fan art submissions. If you'd like to have your fan art featured in these videos, submit them to our Discord server linked in the video description. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more frequent updates on the game in between devlogs. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.